Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What? Today I've got David Michael Powell on, and he's the co-founder of 304 Clothing. Hi, David.
Hi mate, how you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Looking forward to having the chat today. Should we jump straight in? Do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Okay, yeah. So my name's David Powell, like you said. I'm the co-founder and currently like the brand director for 304 Clothing. Um, we're a unisex clothing brand. We've been going for 9.5 years now. And yeah, like I said, I'm currently the brand director, but over the 9.5 years, I've pretty much done everything within the business. So got a long CV, I guess.
So this is really interesting because starting a clothing brand is probably one of the toughest, or a successful brand, one of the toughest things you could do at the moment because there's a lot of competition out there, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of competition currently. It's quite, I saying easy. Yeah, I worry about saying it, but it's a lot more accessible, I guess, to start a clothing brand or clothing business, should I say? Because I think starting like creating a brand probably takes quite a while, but actually making a clothing business, you can do that relatively quickly these days with all the businesses out there that are set up to help you. Shopify, Printful, you can make it quite quickly these days.
So how did this all come about? Where did this begin, the idea for 304? Is this something you've always wanted to do, work in clothing, or is it something that just came to you one day?
No, yeah, I actually went to university and studied architecture. My the two other founders, one was a PhD student and the other was a physiotherapist. So none of us had any sort of background in fashion or brand building or anything like that. It was probably just through like sort of wanting to carry on creating after university. I was working as a space designer, and it wasn't really that creative. It's more just like making rooms work well, and I sort of just had that desire to carry on making things. And we had a festival coming up in Manchester called Park Life,
Hmm.
and because we were straight out of university, we didn't have a lot of money. I think we just sort of wanted to, yeah, make a vest. We all made a vest each and tried to make it as cheaply as possible. Um, and then that, yeah, 304 came from there, really.
Oh, wow. Is
Yeah.
Now looking back at it, obviously you went to study architecture. Do you not regret going to uni, but do you wish you jumped into sort of the entrepreneurial world faster, or did you rate your time at university and think it's been helpful for you?
Um, I definitely go again. I would definitely not push anyone away from going to university, but I think for me personally, it was more the growing up, the life skills that I actually got from university rather than the business sort of knowledge or anything that I transferred over to building 304. But the 3 years that I was at university, I loved it personally, and yeah, I wouldn't change it if I'm honest.
Mm. So then, you guys made these vests, and then how did the business go from there? What was the next kind of, oh, actually, we've made these are quite cool. Should we try this? Is that how it went?
Uh, yeah, a little bit, I guess. We made three. We had a party back at our apartment after the actual festival itself, and people took them from us essentially without us knowing. So we sort of thought, hold on, what's going on here? People are taking our vests. We saw people wearing them the next day at the festival, and that was the first sort of sign of if people are actually willing to steal them from us, that maybe there's a bit of desire for, and like sort of demand for these kind of vests at the time.
Yeah.
So we just started making them for friends through Facebook store back then, because there wasn't such, I don't think Shopify was even around then. So yeah, we started making them, selling them through Facebook, and I think that probably continued for about 2 years, where we were all employed still in our day job, so to speak, and we were doing that in the evenings, like most bedroom brands, I guess.
How does it work then? How does this industry work? Because, like you mentioned, there are a lot of different companies that can help support someone when they're making a clothing brand. But how's it worked for you, and what kind of things have you used? Shopify, you mentioned. How's it work with manufacturers? Could you break that all down for us?
Um, yeah, I guess so. So in terms of how you find them, do you mean, or just what like elements of the business
Yeah,
are
how
there?
how does the industry work as a whole? Once you've decided to start a clothing brand, what do you actually need to do to get it off the ground?
Oh God, a big question. You obviously need good product, I guess. You need a website, a functioning website. I think these days you would definitely need enough budget to actually spend on marketing. When we started 9.5 years ago, organic reach on the internet through Google, Facebook, Instagram, SEO, all that sort of stuff was pretty much free, as long as you sort of knew what you were doing or you were willing to test and learn a little bit. But these days, everything comes with a cost, so you definitely need budget to spend to get your brand out in front of people. But I think those are the sort of, I'd probably say marketing spend, a good product and a website. Everything else you probably could outsource really in terms of your distribution, customer service, designing, all that sort of stuff. You can use, I know brands that are using like Upwork or Fiverr, where they're building like £10 million businesses, and they're pretty much just doing the most of it on their own and then subbing bits and bobs out. But we're a little bit different, I guess. We've got a team of 11 people here, and we do pretty much everything in-house, which I guess I could go on to if you want to know why.
Yeah. We'd love to know. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the reasons why we started the brand was, like I said at the beginning, we didn't really plan to make a clothing business. It was more, we just wanted to create an environment where myself, my friends could all work together, build a team of staff that all felt like a bunch of friends, and our customers felt like an extension of our friendship group. And that was it really. So we never really planned to have a business where it was all about maybe profit maximizing. Oh, you don't need a full-time member of staff to do that. Well, actually, we've just made the decision to hire a multifaceted person that could do loads of different things because they're part of the bigger team, and that's what we like. So that's what we sort of built, to be honest.
Would it be fair to say this is an e-commerce business? Would you put it under that kind of title now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So this is a really interesting kind of industry that's only sprung up in the last probably 5 to 10 years. In the last 5 years, people have really started to take off, and e-commerce has grown massively. But for people of a younger generation thinking, what they want to do, how can you begin to sort of get into e-commerce? What kind of skills should you be learning if you're going to apply for a job, for say at 304?
To apply for a job at 304.
What kind of skill sets are really going to be crucial for anyone working e-commerce? I know it's a brand topic, but there are some that are, you definitely need to have.
I think, to be honest with you, the main thing for us is just willing to work in a team collaboratively, and just willing to work hard, if I'm honest with you, because e-commerce, it never stops. It's not you can have a 9-to-5 job, but the website never turns off. So there's always things to do. There's always customers asking for things. There's always things you can do to push the business on, or your area within the business. So just the willingness to get stuck in, to be honest with you. Degrees and sort of CVs isn't necessarily something we hire on. We definitely have a process where we get people in for 2 or 3 interviews, and we have a good sort of chat with them and sort of see how they would work in the wider sort of structure of the business, how they get on with the team, and whether they've got that sort of desire to work hard and push and sort of progress themselves. As much as we want to push the brand on, we want our staff to try and push themselves on and forward their career.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You mentioned 2 things there, university and CVs. So you said university, you're not particularly worried if someone hasn't gone to university, as long as they can, push on and work hard and prove themselves. And then CVs, it's not something that you're too fussed about. Like, how would somebody approach you guys?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, not particularly. I think obviously if you do go to university, it's good that you've gone through that process and you've understood the sort of discipline and the educational side of things to stick to a structure, which is definitely good. CVs, they're all pretty similar, aren't they? So it is very difficult to make yourself stand out with a 2 or 3 page PDF. So it is all about that sort of how you come across, whether it be on a Zoom call or in person, and making them sort of first impressions. I think that.
what about sort of online portfolios? Because we've been talking about this quite a lot actually, and personal brands and things like that. If somebody's got somewhere where they can showcase their work, let's take the part of the business you work in, the the brand and the marketing side. If
Yeah.
somebody's got a social media account and they say, "Look, I grew it to this," or "Look, I've done that," that's far more impressive than an A4 piece of paper, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think growing either a personal brand or creating a digital portfolio, it shows sort of, again, that sort of, you put in a lot of time and effort. It's all pre-thought out. It's a good sort of example of what you would do within the business. So well, this is how I presented myself. Really slick. It's nice. It's thinking outside the box. You're going to translate that thinking into the business, which is good for the business. So yeah, it's definitely something I'd recommend.
And what kind of personality traits do you think somebody needs to really succeed in e-commerce?
At any level or just
Yeah,
just in
any level,
general?
just in general, really.
Um, I would say resilient for sure. I think from a personal level, e-commerce, there's so many ups and downs, depending, I guess, how much information you know about the business you're working in terms of like the sales. You're always sort of working towards growth, which is it's quite tough at times. So I think that the resilience of understanding that you're going to go through cycles of things being really good and things being a little bit slower, and sort of understanding how to get through that. Um, and discipline, I guess, is one I would recommend, or would we definitely look at. Being able to sort of, if you say you're going to do something, follow through with it, and understand that it's all the little things that you say you're going to do that sort of add up at the end of the year. So we're a big advocate for the 1% club that we run at 304, and it's pushing our staff to think of a 1% improvement on their week every week.
Mm,
So yeah, discipline and resilience, I'd say.
brilliant. And how did you move into the role of brand director, and what does that actually involve at 304?
Um, as we sort of grew the team out, um, the wearing the hat of all areas in the business started to. Well, I learned to have to delegate and let certain aspects go, and sort of understand which bits I enjoy the most and which bits I'm probably the best at. And over the 9 years, I think focusing on the direction of the brand going forward was probably where I was best suited. And then we have my business partner who sort of is in the trenches of the day to day, so to speak, of managing the finances and the cash flow and all that sort of stuff. And then we've got our first ever hire, who sort of runs the sort of what we call like the website, the mechanics of it all. So between the three of us, one of us is looking at maybe yesterday, one of them is looking at today, and then I'm looking forward.
Mm. And as a brand director, what kind of things are you doing?
Brand director, I oversee all the marketing. So you have to sign off all the 2 weeks marketing plans, all the content creation, oversee the actual design of the clothes, the graphics, production. It's still pretty broad for a brand director, I guess. I think we're a pretty small team still, really, where there's 10 or 11 of us. So it's not like we have loads of people below us. So I am still overseeing pretty much everything visual within the business.
Mm. And what's been the biggest positive or opportunity you've personally taken out of starting this business?
Um, I guess from my point of view, it's just my personal development, really, in my career, that I'm quite a very introverted person. Public speaking is not something I particularly enjoy, or leading teams. I've always been quite someone who works on their own. So now having to work not only within a team, but sort of leading a team, it's something that if I'd have stayed in my chosen career in architecture, that maybe I probably wouldn't have pushed myself as far as I've had to push myself in owning 304 and sort of running it.
Yeah, cool. And then on the flip side of that, what's something maybe less favorable or negative about this whole journey so far?
I guess sort of pushing through all the setbacks that you have in building a brand. There's a lot of there's not that many brand owners actually that sort of maybe say the pitfalls and the real struggles that you go through, but there you could you could probably name five most days of things that have happened that you have to really sort of push through. So I think the biggest problem for any business or brand is just managing your cash flow, especially a stock-based brand or business, where obviously, like especially in clothing, where there's so many SKUs across so many designs, across men's and women's, it's a really difficult job to manage your cash flow and your stock levels. It's a constant headache.
And how hard was the decision to decide that, I've got this degree, I'm an architect, I'm doing, what I kind of initially thought, to going, actually, we're going to make the jump here and start this brand? Was that a really tough decision to make, or one that felt quite natural?
For me, it was quite an easy decision, I think, to be honest. I did 2.5 years working part-time on 304 while doing the architecture, and I had a conversation with my dad. I'm a massive Man City fan, season ticket holder, and I was actually working seconded into the Man City website. So I was working on the redevelopment of the stadium.
Oh, cool.
And on paper it's cool for me, but I actually wasn't really enjoying it. And I thought, well, I spoke to my dad and was like, if I'm not really enjoying working for Man City as a space designer or architect, then I'm probably never going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that having that conversation, my dad said, well, yeah, it's probably the case, really. He's a Man City fan as well. So if anyone was going to try and talk me into saying, no, keep going, do it, it was going to be him. And he said, no, go. Obviously, 304 is growing. If you want to give it a go, now's the time, really. So for me, it wasn't really a hard choice. But I know for other people, it is a very big sort of decision to go for it. And it's usually finance-based, isn't it? I mean, you'd have to take a huge drop in wages, or obviously change your lifestyle completely to start your own business.
And I think e-commerce is a really exciting category for anybody that's just either leaving university or maybe leaving school, because it's going to be a growing industry. There is so much opportunity online. And we mentioned a few things that can help, like Shopify and things like that. But if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking, do you know what, I'd love to actually get into e-commerce, whether it be clothing or something else, what is something that they can be doing now to put themselves in a good position when they actually come to apply for jobs? Is there something they can research, something they can learn, just to put themselves in a really good starting position?
I guess in terms of starting their own e-commerce business, or just wanting to work within an e-commerce business?
I think working in an e-commerce business to start with.
I would probably just suggest to people to just try and find what they actually enjoy doing or what they're passionate about. Because I think from my experience working as an architect, which I thought maybe was the next step to go down after studying product design at college, I was never really that passionate about it. I just sort of went down the process of thinking, well, this is probably the next thing to do. Whereas now in hindsight, I probably should have looked at characteristics of myself, things I was passionate about, and then sort of really had to sit down and thought, well, where does this sit within my future career? And also, if you don't go straight into e-commerce or the particular e-commerce business or brand that you want to be in long term, I wouldn't see that as a problem either. Like, use it as experience to figure out exactly where you want to land, where you want to work, and who you want to work for.
And would you still start 304 now, knowing everything you do?
Someone asked me this actually the other day, and my answer the other day was no.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's a really tough question. When we started 304, like I said at the beginning, we created clothing sort of by chance. We just sort of fell into clothing because it was quite an easy thing, cheap thing to sort of us to just start creating. But the goal for 304 was sort of just to be around your friends and working together. And it was never like, oh, it needs to be a clothing brand, or it needed to be 304 that it is today. That was never the vision. I never saw 304 being what it is today. 10 years ago, I think you hear the story of Gymshark. They started as selling supplements, and now they're a clothing brand. So we're not the only one that sort of fell into that sort of cycle of making clothes. But whether I would make clothes now, my answer would probably be no, just because of how I think saturated it is, how much I wouldn't be convinced to make clothing now, but maybe 3 or 4 as a brand, I would start, if that is an answer
Interesting.
possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and
no
wish
problem.
you all the best of luck with the future of 304. And where can people find you, find your company, what you're up to?
Well, yes, you can find 304 Clothing across all the social media channels. It's 304 Clothing. Me personally, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, so it's DMP304 or David Michael Powell. And our website's 304clothing.com. It'd be great for you to have a look.
Brilliant. Thank you, David.
No problem.